We are starting with the Las Vegas Raiders. Some would say great home field advantage. Maybe a couple of
Potentially for other teams.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's more of the sense that maybe you hope that you run into your opponents, get a little bit lost at the blackjack table the night before.
Fair.
There was a quote actually. I'm gonna see if I can remember it. But Geno Smith basically said, "I didn't." I'm gonna find the quote because I don't want to mess it up. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
get through
as
it. So
far as far as Allegiant Stadium, like absolutely beautiful stadium. I mean, it truly doesn't look like anything else around it. I mean, it looks like the Death Star, like everybody says,
right.
just from the outside. And then it's always interesting how Raider fans show up because Las Vegas is still Las Vegas, and when it comes to sports, a lot of sports fans also like the betting space, like we do as well. So, what better way to find yourself to one of your favorite teams' games than, hey, let's join this with a trip to Vegas?
Yeah, no, and it is kind of sad that Oakland Raiders had one of the most franchises and fan bases
Yeah.
out there, right? The
Oh, yeah.
Black Hole, and they have some great fans, but yeah, they definitely feel slighted as everybody kind of moved out of Oakland and moved to Las Vegas. But I do want to just hit on this really quickly. The quote from Geno Smith said, "I didn't come to Vegas to roll the dice. I came to run the table."
Ooh.
Pretty nice, I will say. Nice quote, Geno.
That's
He still knows how to write back or
that's
didn't
right.
write back or whatever the hell we're talking about there. But let's
He,
talk
he
about
put
these.
some thought into that one.
He did put some thought in that one. I didn't mind it. He had all off season to kind of cook that one up. So good for you,
Right.
Geno. But let's get into this. This Las Vegas Raiders team breakdown here. We're going to talk their massive list of additions and losses. I have the easy part of just kind of rattling them off for you, the notable ones, and then Derek is going to kind of decipher this. This is a 4-13 team last year, so maybe a bunch of additions and isn't the worst thing because it was not a very good team last year. All right, let's go through the losses. They got rid of most of their quarterbacks. I think Aiden O'Connell is still on the roster. Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder are gone. Alexander and Amir Abdullah are gone. Got rid of a couple linemen and Cody Whitehair and Andre James. Defense, Devion Diablo, Robert Spillane, both were starters last year. Nate Hobbs, Marcus Epps, Morig, all starters for the defense, all gone on to different there. But they brought in a lot as well. Most notably, we'll talk about Pete Carroll because, again, as someone who is a veteran coach, they went on from Antonio Pierce, who looked like he could be a player's coach, at the end of the 2023 season, had some momentum, but just kind of got outclassed and they really fell on their face. Really big disappointment last year at 4-13. So we bring in Pete Carroll, someone with some prestige, some pedigree, and you bring in Geno. He brings over his quarterback from Seattle there. The big, the guy in the running backs when we talk about prospects, Mr. Ashton Jeanty over from Boise State. You got Jake Betch from TCU to immediately come in and make an impact. And you bring over Alex Kappa, who was in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then the Bengals. Maxx Crosby has stayed, obviously, just not really an addition, but inking him for a long-term deal.
Yep.
And then bringing in Jermaine Pratt and Landon Roberts, Devin White. We talked about the linebackers that left. They have to bring in some guys to fill those roles, as well as Eric Stokes, Jamal Adams, Jeremy Chin, and Isaiah Palomayo. So they lost a lot. They brought in a lot. Where are we at as far as this roster heading into the 2025 season?
I think the biggest changes were truly needed was, one, you finally bring in a franchise quarterback, even though he's like, 34, 35. He's 34 now in Geno Smith. But, Pete Carroll as a head coach brings in a guy that he's had a lot of experience, being behind center for teams of his in Geno Smith. You obviously upgrade the running back room immediately when you draft a guy like Ashton Jeanty. Other than that, offensively, everything should look fairly similar. Alex Kappa that they're bringing in should be a starting guard for him. But when he was in Tampa, he was playing pretty well. Once he moved up to Cincinnati, things
Where
didn't
offensive linemen go to
necessarily,
die.
yeah, things didn't necessarily carry over. So hopefully he returns back to his Tampa Bay days when it comes to his play. Defensively, a lot of moves. I'm not necessarily sure if they were good moves at the end of the day. They lost a lot of experience and a lot of pretty key pieces from their defense last year, but you still have some pretty studly dudes up front with Maxx Crosby and Christian Wilkins. You bring in a Landon Roberts, really lay the hammer when it comes to the running game. Secondary wise, they definitely needed a guy like Jamal Adams. It'll be interesting to see if he can fill one of those safety spots. Because right now, I think he's slated to be a backup behind Polo Mao, however you say his name, and Jeremy Chin. But yeah, secondary linebacking core are still question marks for me.
Yeah. Look, I think it's major upgrades, head coach department, running back department, and quarterback department, right? They're really obviously hugely important roles there for the team. And I think the offense was the problem. Their defense wasn't great, but it was pretty good. I think about games like versus Atlanta, like they were just keeping them in games, and they were feisty, right? They weren't a terrible unit. And I think that, they can continue they got some dudes on defense, but man, that offense was just abysmal.
Yeah.
And, you bring in now some stability, some guys that actually have done it before.
Yep.
I think that is a big improvement. I don't mind their offensive line. Colt Miller, Dylan Faram, Powers Johnson. Those are some solid players there. Again, we talked about Kappa. I need to get healthy again, and then Glaze isn't terrible as well. I mean, it's a solid offense. It has the potential to be a much better offense.
Yes.
And then on the defensive side, there is a lot of change.
Yep.
Now, Jermaine Pratt and Landon Roberts have started and been starting quality linebackers on other teams. Yep. The secondary is a little bit of a question mark there. You got some journeymen. You got some young guys and Darian Porter in their draft pick. Stokes is a guy who was a high prospect who hasn't been able to stay healthy. Darnay Holmes, a former John, who not the best really there, and the nickelback position. So they're about an average defense, but I think even going to an average to above average offense is a major step in the right direction compared to how bad they were last year.
For sure. And I will say, I mean, Pete Carroll is known as a ground and pound guy and really a defensive mastermind as well. So, I mean, even though you lose quite a few pieces on defense, you bring to fill holes. I wouldn't be surprised if he upgrades the defense a little bit, just knowing how he likes to coach,
especially those secondaries. Yeah, and he really turned some diamonds in the rough.
Exactly. And like you said, I mean, offensively, did they bring any pass catchers? Maybe with Beck and some of the other guys that they brought in, but from a running game standpoint, Jeanty's a stud.
Yeah, even Mostert behind him.
That's true too. And I would not be surprised if between the two of them, they carried the rock 30, 35 times a game, just because that's how Pete Carroll likes to roll.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about this defensive line, because obviously we have Maxx Crosby, who's an absolute beast, but there are some question marks behind Maxx Crosby as far as can we generate a pass rush outside of Crosby when he gets double teamed.
Yep.
Now they brought over Christian Wilkins, who was supposed to very much help with that on interior, give him a bit of an interior rush there, coming over from Miami. He went down early last season with the Jones fracture, which is a fracture to your, not your pinky toe, but to your pinky, kind of the base of your pinky there.
Yep.
Usually takes about 4 to 6 months. He has 11 months until week 1. You would expect him to be good to go, but he started the training camp on the PUP.
Yep.
We talked about it. Doesn't necessarily mean anything quite yet. Just means he's not ready. He could come off at any time.
Right.
But that's not the best. I mean, we're now 9 months, into his recovery. You would expect someone with a Jones fracture to kind of be back by now. And there's a little bit of question marks with this timeline. So where are you at with Christian Wilkins here?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a concern, especially when we're talking fractures. Most fractures, we're thinking 6 to 8 weeks. Whenever we're talking about foot-related fractures, just because, one, they're at the furthest point in our bodies. It's not as good of blood flow to certain areas of our feet. They don't heal nearly as quickly, especially in the case of things like Jones fractures. But like you said, shouldn't take more than 6 months. He's had almost double that. A little bit of a concern, but by the time we get to second preseason game, third preseason game, if we're not seeing much change with Christian Wilkins, that's when I'm going to be really concerned for the first part of the season.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The other guy, Malcolm Kuntz, a guy who coming off of 2023 had a really solid year for them, young pass rusher. Unfortunately, just a couple before their week 1 game, he tore his ACL last year. Very tough injury to come back from as far as major stabilizing ligament of the knee, required major surgery. Good news, typically takes around 10 to 12 months until you can get out there and be a football player again. Maybe longer, really back to where you were before, but he does have 12 months of recovery time until week 1 with him being injured so early. So where are we at with Malcolm Kuntz?
It's not something that I'm super concerned with, but at the same time, like you're right at the edge of that timeline. So when it comes to ACL tears, personally, I think there's a huge difference between offensive, defensive linemen versus guys that play, premier positions out wide or at the running back position where you're making a lot more you're doing a lot more change of direction, cutting, pivoting, those kind of things, which stress that ACL a lot more. Usually when it comes to interior linemen, defensive linemen, these injuries typically happen because somebody falls on your knee in the wrong direction, right? So in this case, a lot of times we'll talk about how guys can't necessarily trust their knee because last time they were out on the field, it failed. Well, it didn't necessarily fail. Some other 350-pound guy just fell on your knee.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a difference there. And I wouldn't be too surprised if he goes ahead and gets started week 1. Will he be back to his old shape of a couple years ago? It may take a few weeks.
Yeah, no, but I think there is reason for optimism for Kuntz. The Wilkins one right now, there shouldn't be, but there's kind of just with how it's handled, not giving the best vibes, we'll say, off. So something to monitor there. All right, let's get to the fantasy football world here. We're going to talk about 2 guys in particular. One's pretty easy. Let's just talk a little bit about how awesome Brock Bowers is, because he's our tight end number 1. And, when we did our rankings, if you want to check out all of our top 25 rankings, go over to IDP Plus. We did a rankings episode for this season. He came in at number 10 for us overall. So that still is in a wide receiver 1, RB type of, going in the first round. To us, he's worth it. Why do you think that's the case, whereas other people are, hey, he's still a tight end, I can't do it in the first round?
Well, I think it's one of those things where, Brock Bowers is a wide receiver playing tight end.
Right.
When it comes to fantasy numbers, it's like Travis Kelce of 3 or 4 years ago. It's just one of those things where he doesn't have too much competition in terms of target shares. Like you have Jacoby Myers there, who's going to get his from time to time, but other than that, you have some rookie wide receivers and guys that just don't really have much of my attention when it comes to catching the football. So from Brock Bowers' standpoint, it's like he's probably going to have 120 catches for 1,100 yards and 6 or 8 touchdowns just because there's nobody else to throw it to.
Yeah, look, 112 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns with absolute dog shit at quarterback.
Yeah.
Now you have a guy who's competent, and you have a coach who's competent, and you have a running game that you can run some play action off of. I think it absolutely.
They shouldn't average 3.5 yards a carry or whatever it was like they did last year. They were the worst running football team.
Terrible
in football last year.
Zamir White, completely wrong on him. Awful. Yeah. But no. So we love Bowers. I think he is again coming at number 10 for us. Another guys is Ashton Jeanty. Look like on one hand, he's freaking awesome. He's one of the best prospects we've seen. Him look Michael Myers standing up in the backfield, ready to run everybody and their mother over. His stats are ridiculous from college. Yep. On one hand, he's awesome, and it's like this dude should immediately be great. And the other hand, he's a rookie, and he's going from playing in the Mountain West, and now he's got to play a bunch of NFL guys. How high can we be on Ashton Jeanty? Like, what are people going too crazy with it? Do you think he's going just right? I mean, where are you at with Jeanty? Where does he fall for you?
Yeah, I think, as far as projections go, I think he projects like a Bijan Robinson coming out of Texas when he came into the league. It's like these are can't miss dudes. And I mean, Bijan didn't have an incredible first year, but part of that was because you have Tyler Algier there sharing carries. I don't think Jeanty's going to be sharing too many carries. I think he's going to get the ball 20 times a game. So I think he's probably getting taken reasonably. I think, back half of the first round is kind of where I'm seeing him as well.
Yeah. I may be a little bit more pumping the brakes. I'm looking, I think he was 16 overall for us coming in, and then like RB7, 8, 6, whatever.
Yeah.
I just, some of it is the fears of the rookie and how's it going to translate. And some of it is is this offensive line going to hold up? And
Sure.
Again, they were a terrible rushing team. Like, how much can they give them now? So I really like Jeanty. I think I'm just someone who's a little bit hesitant to really go all in on these rookies.
So let me pose this question to you. If you can take Bowers at the end of the first, Jeanty at the top of the second, are you doing that?
Oof.
And just taking basically the entire Raiders offense.
I mean,
it didn't really do much last year.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. That's for sure. On the turn, though, I mean, I think I might look somewhere else. I'm definitely doing the Bowers. I'm definitely hitting Bowers, but I would probably go like Neighbors, Collins, Jonathan Taylor in front of Jeanty. But it's close. I mean, I'm not upset. It's just like, then it's like, damn, I'm really I don't know if I want to be all in on the Raiders again. Kind of burned me last year. They went a little bit, thought they were going to be a much, much better team than they were. So might be some of that. But all right, let's move on to the betting space here. And let's talk win total, futures, and best bets for this 2025 Las Vegas Raiders team. Look, they're 4-13 in 2024. They come in with a win total of 7.5. Now you're getting very solid plus money and heavy juice to the under. You can also go 6.5, and obviously it's the other way. So you kind of split the difference on, if you want to play juice or not. But basically projecting right around 7 is where a lot of the books are projecting with them. Now make playoffs around plus 320 to plus 340. Miss playoffs anywhere as high as minus 450. In the AFC West, from 12-1 to 20-1. To win the AFC, kind of 50-55-1, and then Super Bowls anywhere from 100 to 125-1. Any win totals, futures for this Las Vegas Raiders team?
Yeah. So, got a question for you. So Pete Carroll's first year in the NFL, obviously he took some time out of the NFL in the early 2000s to coach over at USC, but his first gig as a head coach was in 1994. He's basically spent, I think, 18 years as a head coach in the NFL. How many times has he gone under 7 wins?
Under 7 wins. Jeez, I feel like this is flashback to Sean Payton last year. 18 years? I'd say 3 times.
Once.
Wow, really?
His very first year with the New York Jets. He got fired after that year. And since then, he has won at least 7 games every year that he's been in the NFL.
Yeah. Okay.
So in that case, I'm going over 6.5 for the Raiders at minus 145. I'll
pay the
go ahead and I'll go ahead and take the little bit of a pay cut. But just historically, Pete Carroll wins games and bringing in a lot of moving parts, but we were a little bit higher on the Raiders last year. I don't necessarily know if it was all the play of the Raiders or if it was some coaching stuff or if it was just awful quarterback play. But when it comes to play calling, when it comes to quarterback, when it comes to running back, 3 key positions that they were really, really lacking last year, they had major upgrades. So I'm going over 6.5 at -145 with the Raiders.
Yeah. Look, you're not going to get too much pushback from me here. I ultimately did not pull the trigger there. I didn't want to pay the juice, and I didn't know if they'd get to 8. I do think they're a better team, right?
Yes.
I think they're definitely a better team than they were last year. The schedule's a little bit tough. Who do they play? They play what divisions there? It looks like the AFC South, and they play the NFC East.
Yes.
So not the worst. The South's a little bit beat up there, so not terrible. Got definitely some winnable games. I just thought it was a little bit big of a jump for me, getting over the 7.5. The 6.5 obviously would feel much better with. But I do think they're definitely improved, especially on offense. I think it's very hard to make an argument that this roster is not vastly better. So I don't hate the over there. I did not ultimately pull the trigger on any win total future because I could kind of see them being around there. That 6 or more like 7-8 wins, kind of where they're going to be at.
Yep.
But I am going to pull the trigger on Jacoby Myers, over 800.5 receiving yards at -105 over on DraftKings, and then also 1,000 yards at +200. You can find that at Bet365. Jacoby Myers is the wide receiver 1 on this team. I mean, we saw it as soon as Devontae Adams left, really even before. He went for, he had 87 catches on 129 targets and over 1,000 yards just last season. Again, I emphasize how fucking awful that quarterback room was. It was painful to watch. He's also gone over 800 yards in each of the past 4 years, 2 with the Patriots, 2 with the Raiders here. He's just someone that seems to always find his way to the ball, and he's always kind of open and a reliable target. I think he just their quarterback play, and again, things are going to open up a little bit in the passing game because you have, we're projecting a competent running game with Ashton Jeanty and Raheem Mostert. So I do ultimately think that Jacoby Myers is a little bit undervalued here by the books. All the attention is on Jeanty and Bowers, and deservingly so. But I think that gives us a little opportunity for Jacoby Myers. So I like his over, and then a little bit of the alt over with 1,000 yards for next season.
Yeah, no, I'll sign that. I also took the alt over at 1,000 with Jacoby Myers. Nice. But then I did find a Jeanty bet that I like, and I like it. So I like Jeanty to have the most rushing touchdowns in the division at +170.
Oh,
so
is he the favorite?
He is the favorite.
Okay,
yes.
Makes sense. Yeah,
and the reason behind that is the rest of the division. I mean, it's basically running back. I mean, with the Chargers, you got Najee Harris and Amari Hampton. In Denver, you got R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, you obviously have Hunt and Pacheco. So
right
from all of those positions, I mean, Jeanty's going to be the dude. As long as he stays healthy, Raheem Mostert's going to be there, but they're not going to take Jeanty out of the backfield once they get in the red zone.
Yeah, definitely not by the goal line. Yep.
Exactly. I mean, he's a bowling ball. Right. Stud. So, I really like that one. His over on total touchdowns and yards were a little bit steep to me. Again, being a rookie running back, as well as having one of those kind of, I'll say, average offensive lines.
Right.
I didn't really want to pull the trigger there, but because of the kind of split carries throughout the rest of the division, I felt with Jeanty getting the most touchdowns.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just going to add that to my card, actually, and make sure I get in on that because you mentioned it. I mean, even if you look at the other running back situations, let's say Amari Hampton, R.J. Harvey, and Isaiah Pacheco are the RB1s right now, right?
Yeah.
Those guys aren't really, bruisers. The guys behind them are probably the ones that are going to get touchdowns. When I think of Kareem Hunt, Najee Harris, and J.K. Dobbins,
Right.
So I definitely like that. I mean, he's the only clear, like you said, RB1, and he's the one that best matches who I'm putting near the goal line. Someone who needs to break a tackle and get the end zone. So, I definitely really like that one. All right, for these Oakland
Hold up.
I apologize, fans. I did not mean the PTSD for their Las Vegas Raiders for the 2025 season. Derek likes him on over 6.5 wins, trusting Pete Carroll there. We are high on Jacoby Myers to go over his prop and get to 1,000 yards. And Ashton Jeanty to lead the AFC West in rushing touchdowns at plus 170. Love that one there to round that out for your 2025 Las Vegas Raiders. Getting into our sponsors here. First up, Bob's Lungs Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. It's consistent, and you're going to every episode to repeat that consistency to make sure you guys know, because honestly, we just want to make sure you get a leg up on your opponents, and the best way to do that was with Bob's 10th annual edition of the Football Consistency Guide for 2025. Purchase yours for a measly $15 on Amazon. Just search 2025 Fantasy Football Consistency Set Guide and get yours today.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.